thank you, Matt, for joining us at 11:11 here in New Orleans, my time.
11 is a cool number for me too. The Bay Bridge was raising $11 million
Oh,
to
wow.
turn back on. I'm born on January 11th, so it's fun. Yeah,
Great.
111.
Great. Yeah. And I like it with binary code too. A lot of ones means a lot of yeses in my book. Um, I wanted to, so we only have a little bit of time, and I like to do very focused kind of question and answer, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
And, what we're really about is having some kind of like philosophical understanding of the work we do, and talking with people who have done great work like yourself. And I know WordPress is about to be 21 years old. Um, and you've also been, on a sabbatical I've been following online, and I've seen a lot of talk around legacy. And so I really want to start with the biggest question I could possibly think of. And that is like, what do you want to be remembered for most? What do you think is the greatest good that you have achieved here?
Oh, um, well, hopefully many things, right? Not just one thing. But yeah, I one thing I do really hope and am working on is to create institutions, organizations that sustain, that continue, that grow, that thrive. And so that WordPress and open source and everything can continue to flourish through my lifetime and hopefully far beyond.
And has that vision of I think you've I've heard similar things before of like you want to be kind of like a Berkshire Hathaway, you want Automatic to be like a Berkshire Hathaway, and you really want to give people autonomy. But has that vision been with you since you started hacking and started to build something called WordPress?
Well, definitely since I discovered open source, and this is also like open source, the Wikipedia, all these ideas, like, hey, this belongs to all of us. This belongs
Hmm.
to humanity. So let's all contribute to this thing, and it then belongs to all of us, and then we can make it better. So
Hmm.
it becomes this great shared resource of the commons that can be somewhat immortal as long as it has utility and usefulness to the world.
And like when I think of your work and your legacy, I do think that you have democratized web publishing more than anybody I know or have heard of, and I do put you kind of in a social impact entrepreneur space because of what you've done for web publishing. And I wonder, do you feel comfortable with being a social impact entrepreneur? Do you see yourself as like a champion for a good view? How do you see yourself within that?
I don't self-identify with the term social impact, but yeah, or we do have a social impact, so I guess it's fine to be labeled as that. I For me, it's really the philosophy uh, that's my North Star is that of open source.
Mm.
Um, it's one of the best things I've come across. I like to challenge it and interrogate it, and it continues to come up uh, great. So I think that means it's a great philosophy and has a lot of resilience and staying power.
And do you think it's a great philosophy for like the world? Is it going to make the world better, or is it a great philosophy for business? Like, how do you see it as so great, or how do you quantify it as so great?
Well, it sets the conditions for the world to be better in many ways, not unlike liberty or freedom or other things. These don't make the world better in and of themselves, but they definitely are preconditioned and set the environment for what I hope good things to flourish.
Hmm. And one of the things I was looking at your investments, which honestly, I've been in the WordPress community for a big part of my life, and it's created my business, my livelihood. It's given me a lot of autonomy. So I have to thank you for that. But then I started to look at all the other things you do outside of WordPress, and I was like, wow, like your world is not just WordPress. You have an amazing set of investments, and I've talked to people who you've invested in over the years, and they really appreciate your early stage investments. And so, like, how do you see the work outside of WordPress or even outside of open source of what you were doing?
Well, I guess, when I was a 19-year-old kid without any connections in Silicon Valley or anything, people took a chance on me. So I tried to pass that along to others. And so angel investing through RG Capital has been a great way for me to sort of pay it forward. Some of the belief and confidence that I got when I was first getting started out. And then also, it's a way for me to learn and keep track of a lot of different areas that I'm fascinated by and that I might work on if I weren't doing WordPress.
Hmm.
Now, WordPress, WooCommerce, democratizing publishing, commerce, and messaging are my life goals, and that will keep me very, very busy. But I also, I'm fascinated by like home automation and meditation and all these other areas. So like, it's not what my not you know my primary goal. It's not the top of my list, but I love to support those things where I can, and investing is a fun way to do it.
One of the things that strikes me is like you have a place for your interests that might not be like the main kind of professional place. And something that I hear a lot from the founders, and I see several of them involved. We have clowns here, we have photographers, we have demographers, all sorts of wacky, wonderful, creative folks involved. But one of the things that keeps coming up is interest and focus and where to find focus. Do you have any kind of words of advice of like, if you are a very creative person, like I know you're a photographer as well, like, how do you decide that I'm going to democratize publishing and that's going to be really what I focus on? And then,
Hmm.
how do you package that?
I'm not sure how to answer that, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Do you think, I mean, like, because do you think of yourself like did you choose your profession and say this is going to be my goal? And can you speak a little bit about like maybe that moment and what has given you the confidence to say like this is what I want to spend my life doing versus all these other things?
I mean, in some ways I chose it, co-founding WordPress with Mike Little almost 21 years ago. And in some ways it chooses you, the world saying that this is something that it wants to exist. And the countless thousands of people who have gotten involved to make it a movement have made it so much bigger than me. And that's really why we're all here, why we're talking about it, is it's not for, and that's really been my learning through everything I've done in building companies and everything, is when you can align people around a belief, a vision, a goal, a mission, and that's actually really, really satisfying. And that's kind of what I want to keep doing. Um, I enjoy some solitary work, or meditation, or playing long tones on my saxophone or something like that. Um, that inner work can be really, really rewarding. But I'm definitely tilted to I couldn't be like a monk in a cave. Like I really need to be in community. And that's what I enjoy, building teams, building creating communities of people working together towards a common goal. And hopefully together we can do something better than any of us could do on our own.
And I'm kind of curious, like, about how you focus your personal interest in that community versus like community interests. And I know, like, I've heard a lot of, I would call it criticism, but some of it is just unfounded criticism of like, this is automatic with a mat in it and different things like this, or like WordPress is mat. But like, how do you, I know because you cannot have created such a diverse community as WordPress and just been like a leading with your own vision only. How do you balance kind of what you think is best with what other people are saying? And maybe it's not even in the computer community's best interest, but how do you balance what you're saying with what other people are saying?
Yeah, in my role as a leader of this community, I really try to get as many inputs as possible. So listening to people as much as possible, and also rooting things in sort of the principles, or what are the platonic ideals of what we're trying to achieve. And so that combination, um, hopefully provides a good sort of route to steer. Now, you said unfounded criticism. There's plenty of founded criticism too. Like I definitely have screwed it up many times and will make mistakes in the past and will in the future. But the nice thing is that as we learn from those mistakes, the feedback loop of a broad community of people coming together for a shared interest, not necessarily because they have to be working on WordPress. There's plenty of other CMSs, there's plenty of other things people could do with their time. Um, that volunteer community, I think, creates a really good sort of accountability loop. And yeah, but so I enjoy participating in that.
And I've heard you not only couch like what you do as like community building, but as movement building. You had a great interview that I recently watched with Joseph Jacks, who we're speaking with in about an hour. Um, and you basically said like founders should be focused on, and you're talking to open source founders, but founders should be focused on movement building. I'm curious if you have like if you have any words of advice. I mean, for me personally, because I feel about this, but everybody who's involved for like both figuring out what movement you want to build from, and then like any like just practical words of advice of how to build a movement. How do you get people involved with your project? How do you move forward?
Well, I think you need to give some people something they can believe in, you know, so some aspirational ideal. You need to give people a way to participate in it, whether that's through using the product or telling a friend or actually participating in, and you need to give people ownership, So like all of this is all fine and good, but if you don't truly own the end thing, um, it's you're kind of dancing to someone else's song. And so that's what I really love about open source is that it gives all of those things by definition of the license. And and I really like that. I feel like so I mean, there's lots of ways to create products. Like I could create proprietary products and other things. I have many friends that do. I just like creating products that also increase the liberty and freedom in the world at the same time that they're successful when they're successful.
That's pretty cool. I mean, to think about your work building a piece of software as increasing liberty and freedom. I mean, that's a pretty big goal and a societal goal. I mean, do you see yourself in like a political term and like an Aristotelian like term of giving back to a community as you work?
Of course, yeah. I mean that's why I keep working.
Mm.
It's very very satisfying to contribute to something. I guess that's maybe to your earlier question as well. It's great to be part of something bigger than yourself, you know, something that benefits a broader set of people. And it's challenging, of course, because there's lots of problems in the world. But knowing that we can make this one area a little bit better, um, I think it helps. I like to leave things better than you find them if you can. And I like to think that as WordPress iterates and improves, we can make our corner of the internet, the part that's powered by WordPress, make it a little better, make it a little more open, have it have better code, load faster, have more open APIs, be more searchable, be more accessible, like all these sorts of things. It's kind of amazing that one ticket or one change to the code can then propagate and then be running on 42, 43% of the web. So that's one of the fun things that's really exciting about working on a project like WordPress that I get really jazzed about, and I think many other developers and contributors do too, is that the work can be small, but then the ripples and the echoes are quite large.
Yeah, that's exactly what has gotten me re-involved with WordPress. Years and years ago, when I was just hacking around, I was like heavily involved with the community and trying to make plugins as much as I could. And I personally went away and focused on making money and making a business. But then in trying to figure out what really matters to me, accessibility, website accessibility, getting people with disabilities online started to matter. And what brought me back to WordPress was that if I made changes within WordPress, I was dramatically improving the accessibility of a large point of the internet. Um, my big question, though, was like, and building a giant community that is giving the opportunity for people like me to be amazingly impactful because you have this large network. When do you start putting safeguards in? When do you start saying, your vision for WordPress isn't necessarily the vision that I think we should go in? And how do you deal with that? Because you're very humanistic, it's very human focused, but then how do you start to say, this is not really going in a good direction?
Well, that debate and discourse and engagement is part of making products. And one cool thing about WordPress is that if people disagree with it, they could fork it. They can also install plugins that completely transform the experience into something very, very different from what I might think WordPress can or should do.
Mhm.
So again, the nice thing about the software is it gives people a lot of agency. And I don't mind that. So like the thing called WordPress, which I'm currently leading, has a point of view, has uh sometimes it's reflective of what I want, sometimes it's not actually because because people kind of ran with a direction or something. But you know, that's just one thing. The nice thing is that the code itself, like the value we're all creating, is very, very free and can be live under a different name or under a different implementation uh, very easily.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that the other thing that surprised me the more I've gotten to know you is how open to criticism you are and discussing criticism in a way that I think I've not quite met in other leaders of large groups. Um,
Luckily, I have a lot of experience in being wrong, so and very publicly from a young age on the internet. So yeah, just that's just a lot of reps.
Yeah, totally. And so I have two more questions. And the first question is around money. And I have to tackle this because you're an investor. You have a lot of money and you orchestrate I would say an economy with a lot of money. Um, and so, like, how do you think about your money and what you like? How do you place yourself as this guy who has a lot of money now? Like, what are you? Are you uncomfortable with that? Do you see it as utility? What is that like when I say, Matt, you're a billionaire? What does that mean to you? What does it really kind of hit on?
Yeah, yeah, these labels are funny. So there's like net worth, right? Which then could also, and then there's liquidity, right? So like when people ascribe to me like these big numbers, it's really, stock in a company that I hope to never sell. Like I don't want to sell this stock. So it's not like it's necessarily something that flows. Now I am also do have some liquidity and there's definitely money helps up to a certain point in meeting needs. I think there is diminishing marginal returns on personal. There are no diminishing marginal returns on investing it or giving it away, though.
Hmm,
And so that always uh, can feel good or be remunerative or create things in the world. Um, I think probably the most important thing there for me, especially growing up with very little, was just trying to shift my mindset from one of scarcity to one of abundance. And
and how what is that to you? Because I've heard that a lot and I haven't quite pinpointed what it is.
yeah, I think that um, you know, just based on like again growing up with very little, you can find yourself holding on to things or being overly materialistic or um, even overly concerned about the ups and downs. I have stocks, they go up and down. Like that number changing can be a lot in a day. Um, so uh, not being too attached to that, I think, is really important
Hmm.
because it can control you and it can, affect your mood or other things. Um, then at some point as well, like that sort of number is also just way of keeping score. Like like seeing what kind of utility we're creating in the world is really nice. And and yeah, I think of it as also like, oh, cool. Like this is also things hopefully someday because I'm not going to take it with me. I'm going to give it all away. So like,
Mm.
oh, this will hopefully help a lot of things down the line.
That's great. So my final question, it's 11:32 and I'm religious about time, is like what excites you with this? Are you at the point where you're like, all right, I'm gonna start giving it all away? Is there something that like really excites you? It doesn't even have to be technology. It could be a meditation, or I heard you were playing chess, which excited me because I started playing chess. Is there
Yeah.
something that really excites you these days?
Just as fun. I'm very excited right now about the Bay Lights coming back. So, San Francisco's been a little bit darker, and the Bay Lights finally passed its sort of like it's like a Kickstarter. They need to raise a certain amount of money to actually like restart the process of like going on the bridge, taking the lights down, putting the new ones up, everything like that. And yeah, I'm very much looking forward to San Francisco having a little more sparkle because it's a city which I think represents kind of the extremes, the best and worst of the American dream, you know?
Mm.
It has all
Yeah.
the challenges, it also has all the beauty and creativity and innovation and creation and and so it's kind of a microcosm of everything we struggle with in society. And so, even though I live in Houston and consider myself a Texan, I'm very, very attached to the outcomes and making San Francisco a better place. And I think Illuminate, the nonprofit that does the Bay Lights, but also many other things like the Golden Mile,
Mm.
the Grace Lights, like many other things throughout the city, um, is doing a lot to sort of elevate that city a bit, illuminate it, and I think that's going to be part of what brings San Francisco back to hopefully be. We can point to it more as an example of things going right than honestly the past 8 or 9 years. There's been some challenges.
Yeah. That's great. I like to hear the other interests of people who seem to be very focused on one thing. I want to bring in a few other folks just to jump into a QA here. And the first person I'm going to bring in is actually a WordPresser because she took the time to write out her entire question in the chat, and I definitely want to honor that by giving her a little bit of a floor. And if you all don't mind, just quick questions so that we can move along and get as many as possible in. So uh, we're gonna add in here. Yes, there she is. Hello, Bridget. Ask your
Hi.
question. Where?
Yeah. Hi. Matt, you introduced a Five for the Future concept 10 years ago. I was also attending WordCamp US that day, San Francisco back in the day. When you reflect on that, what has worked and what would you like to see in near future from your perspective, from a corporate lead and investor? What advice can you give to other big players or companies who make a living with WordPress to give something back to the WordPress project?
Yeah. Well, I think first and most importantly, it was a really great principle to follow myself. And in growing automatic, making sure that we reserved that five for the future and held to it has, I think, resulted in a lot of contributions to the core project that are part of why it has flourished over the past 10 years. And it had such incredible growth and development. Um, I love that other companies have felt called to it as well. And the more that do, I think the better it'll get. So, I mean, that's just one of those things. It's I hope as an idea or meme, it becomes a bit more viral, and it's a little broad as well. So, you can also abstract it away to be not just about WordPress, but what are other things in your life that you get a lot of utility from that are kind of free or part of the commons. And what are ways perhaps you can, orient some of your time to giving a little bit back. It's not unlike, by the way, this is not a new concept. It's kind of like, many religions have a concept of tithing, right? Which is actually 10% usually. So like this kind of idea that you can like give a bit back of whatever you're doing, whatever you're earning, whatever you're blessed with. is a very, very, very old concept. So we sort of made a tech WordPress version of it, but it's not new at all.
I love that, and our group tries to give, or at least I try to give, and I think a few others in our group try to give around 11% of their income to either for profit or nonprofit, but just give it away from our bank accounts, and I've only found excitement and benefits from doing that in the few years I have. Um, we have another one from one of our wonderful group members, Johnny James II here. I'll add him up here, and Johnny James, shoot with your question.
Hi, Matt and everybody. So I'm a climate tech and sort of blue economy founder, but I come from more of a software background. So I've been struggling on how to integrate these open source principles into these non-software sectors, wondering if you have any examples or advice or perspective on that.
Sure. Yeah, if you extract out some of the principles of open source to other things, a good place to start is transparency. Can people see what's happening and when it changes? Who changed what when? Kind of like on the Wikipedia, you go to any page and see like the history of it. That idea of version control or history and transparency, I think is a really, really powerful place to start. And yeah, I guess the next would be like, once you have that transparency, I think it sort of naturally invites contribution, whether that's commentary or actually people suggesting changes themselves. And that is yeah, you can do a lot of that. So even like when I see creators who like, or business entrepreneurs who post like their earnings and their business journey, like that's not really open source, but they are kind of bringing some of those principles. And it's really cool to see that often like draws together uh, a community of people that are invested in the outcome and curious about how it's going. So typically, the more you share, the more you get back. So think about, what is relevant to share in your particular domain or industry.
Super helpful. On to the next one is one of our don't want to say mascots, but the philosopher poet of the Philosophers Group, Sam Birdsong, has a question for you. Let me bring up Sam Birdsong here. All right,
Yeah.
Sam, take it away.
Okay. Can y'all hear me? Hey Matt, nice to meet you. And thank you for being here. I'm reading a book right now called Blitz Scaling by Reid Hoffman and I think Chris Ye.
Yeah.
And it's so competitive, right? It's just like, I mean, lots of value, lots of ideas. It's great for brainstorming, etc. But as someone who has invested in open source, I just wonder, are these parallel universes? Like, and where's the place of competition within open source, or is open source just a way to avoid the stress and the angst of competition?
Not at all. It's actually incredibly competitive. I'm a very, very, very competitive person. So I think competition is great because it makes the competitors better, all of the competitors. And one of the things I love about what we've done with WordPress is we've also forced the proprietary people to be more open than I think they would have been otherwise. So and you know what? They have different business models. And so, Wix and Squarespace and Shopify and all these people improving the product quite a bit forces us to be better, right? Because users at the end of the day, they don't want a drill, they want a hole in the wall. Like they're trying to solve some problem. So if this other proprietary software is solving the problem better for them, they're going to choose it. And when that happens, that then forces us to say, well, especially since we care about more open source being in the world, we got to make our thing better. So I'm very, very pro competition. Blitzscaling is very interesting, and Reid Hoffman's definitely an entrepreneur I look up to quite a bit. He has a background in philosophy. He's quite good. Actually, he interviewed me once, and that's a great interview. If you look it up, he interviewed me. If you look up Reid Hoffman Mullenweg, and yeah. So, but I know that it can feel zero sum. But if you zoom out, I think competition ultimately the winners are consumers and customers and society. So just sort of like Darwinian evolution is a process of competition that's led us to the beautiful world and nature we see around us now and ourselves. I think that happening in business and ideas is a great thing.
And the only thing I have to add for that is a founder that we spoke to the other day, an open source founder, Bruno Luigi, said the only projects he jumps on are the projects that he thinks, even if he doesn't succeed, is going to elevate a marketplace. It's going to elevate others. And I really like that about this development, is that even if I don't succeed, other projects will be better. I want to add, so one very direct open source question I want to add from Justin, who's one of our members as well, and here he is, and I'm curious how you're going to answer this one, Nat. Justin.
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest one for me and I don't know if it's as much open source, but you talked about scarcity to abundance, and then you kind of talked about finding a movement and jumping into it. And I think those are kind of tightly together. For someone realizing that there is this abundance and looking for what they're doing, they can kind of be in this mindset of, do I want to go join somewhere in this movement? Or if I kind of do think there's this abundance, do I want to jump out and start something myself? And how you kind of go through that decision if you're kind of at that point yourself of like, okay, hold on, can I go do this bigger thing? Because there is that pie. And like, and even more so, your thoughts where we might be able to dig into that answer more. And if, that really connects and we want to connect with you and, go into some of those pieces, how we could get in touch with you on some of those things.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm at Photomat on all the socials, Tumblr, Instagram, Twitter, etc. So that's a great place to sort of like ping me or something, and I'll sometimes reply, often reply. Um, and then I do forums like this, like Q&As and town halls and stuff. So in terms of, yeah, you do have a good point that, and I've experienced this myself, that if like a family member is going through a health crisis, or my tank is particularly low, like it's harder to participate and volunteer and contribute. So I do think that it's important for people to you put your oxygen mask on first before helping others. So you don't want to, and I've done this, is give to the point of depletion or to where it's not sustainable. So it's, I think, very, very important to have a practice of self-care and making sure that you're in a good place. And that probably translates in a lot of different ways for a lot of different people. Maybe that's health, maybe that's exercise, maybe that's financial. So, that's provides the best base, I think, to contribute.
That is an amazing, yeah, and that's an amazing thing for us to remember, or even me to remember, because I've been giving away so much, and I've like tried to figure out, okay, what do I pay myself, or what do I have for myself in this process? But we're at 11:44, and I just want to thank you for your time, Matt. This is a really good kind of introduction to your worldview for our team. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in New Orleans sometimes for one of our Philosophers groups. We have a big event on 11/11 every year, so thank you.
Blake, thank you so much as well for what you do in the WordPress community and with accessibility. Like, it's those contributions and that participation that made me want to come here to your thing. So that kind of shows how it works.
I love it. I love it. And hopefully we can continue to pay it forward through all the people involved. So thank you so much. And yeah, I'll see you online, probably on Twitter.
Thanks. Bye-bye.